Good morning, Bam. We're live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jenny, Marissa. Hi. Samantha. Hi. Leah. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, always a pleasure to be here with you.
One of my favorite subjects, babies.
You know, we get it's amazing that since we've come on a few times, how many people we get right in and they're like, my husband, I have no idea who you are, but my husband sent me here because we heard you on the Savan podcast or he heard you. So it's really cool to hear that men are engaging in this.
Yeah, when you're in the kids circuit, once you start having kids and you go to soccer games or whatever stuff you're going to, you're in this kind of always scene of new babies, right? Because there's some family or some mom who always somewhere in the ecosystem is having another kid, and it's so great. One of the moms who has kids in my kids' jiu-jitsu class just had a baby. And I feel like this draw every time I come into the class to go over, say hi to the baby, rub the bottom of its feet. It is.
Yeah.
I hope whatever I do in life, I'm always around like that new cycle.
It's so cool to see, like, you can relate so much. Sorry, we're dog sitting, so I've got dogs everywhere. You can relate so much with like all of the different phases. It's like, oh, I remember newborn and I see where she's struggling and I could see how hard that is. And then they're toddlers and then they're, little kids. And it's so cool how after you've lived the experience, you see it and you're like, oh, I can relate with that. You can just have that instant connection.
And I don't know what it is about babies, but when you look at one, like everything else just goes away.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even care what we're talking about. I just want to talk to your baby.
Yeah. Tell me exactly what, for people who don't know, tell me exactly. Don't worry, the dogs are fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're chill. Tell me about what is Birthfit, like what's its mission, or how do you like to present it? What is it?
Yeah, so Birthfit is basically a fitness program that is also educational for the motherhood transition. So we consider the motherhood transition preconception through prenatal birth and the immediate postpartum being the first year postpartum, but also, considering that postpartum is for life. So you have the community aspect, the education aspect. People come to us for the fitness, and that's where our niche is. That's where we specialize. It's not, hey, we're a bunch of ex-professional athletes who had a baby, so we just came up with a program for moms. It's like, hey, this is what we dedicate our time and our research and everything that we do to. So this is our niche. But within that Birthfit community, you get the education, you get the community, and just that environment of other moms in that chapter that are going through the motherhood transition.
So, focus on, and fix me if I'm wrong, focus on women's health through eating and movement from before having babies to after having babies, but direct for the women before having babies, women who probably are going to have babies.
Yeah, of course. So we are big believers. Obviously, it doesn't always happen that way, but conscious conception. So it's like, hey, if you know that you are planning on having a baby, we have lots of resources to prep the mom's body, that, to nourish yourself, to know what you need to do in that year prior to conception. Even, husbands and partners, like, it's takes two to tango. So kind of understanding that, hey, where you're entering into preconception has a huge correlation with your child's future health as well. It's not just, hey, I ended up pregnant. Like, that happens all the time and babies are fine. But when we can consciously do it and we know more, we can set ourselves up for the best possible pregnancy, birth, postpartum, but also, with genetics and epigenetics and the environment that we set in that window, the future health of your children and their ability to thrive in life. So yeah, we really pull people in early on when they're just thinking like, I know I'm going to have a baby, I'm not quite there yet. And then throughout the entire process. So maybe their third trimester and they find us. Maybe they've had a baby and they're rehabbing postpartum and they find us. We have a little bit of everything, but there's that education factor where it's like, hey, we're not just going to give you a bunch of fluff. We're going to tell you, what we feel to be true, what we've researched, what we've seen in our own experiences. And we're going to be real with you on, like, the do's and the don'ts that we think are going to set you up for the most success.
And how long have you guys been around?
I believe since about 2010-ish.
And so
Lindsay started very grassroots. I would say that Birthfit really took off closer to like 2015, 2016, where we expanded. But Lindsay started Birthfit as a blog way earlier on, and just it kind of grew as a baby from there.
Gabe from Paper Street Coffee. I can't even imagine how my wife and I birthing journey would have gone without Birthfit. I can't stress enough how it changed how life-changing Birthfit was.
Oh, Gabe was awesome. I remember meeting with Gabe and his wife and connected him with a coach who's affiliated with Birthfit. And yeah, I mean, it's so cool to have boots on the ground. I think that's what's cool about Birthfit is it's kind of like, CrossFit. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to this level 1, no big deal. And then you leave the weekend and you're like, holy crap, I need to tell everyone. My whole life was just changed, So you go to Birthfit, whatever education you're pulling from, maybe you're hearing us on a podcast, maybe you're reading a blog, whatever it is. And it's like, holy crap, A, why didn't I know this? And B, more people need to know this. Like, this is important information.
Just some really quick things that, like, from my wife having her first baby, and we didn't have really people around us having babies, but like all of a sudden she didn't want to do pull-ups because of something she felt. When she ate onions, something went weird. She went from vegan to just straight crazy meat eater. She went waking up every morning, you need to drink 2 pints of water, and she didn't have she didn't have like a place to go to. Hey, why can't I eat onions anymore? Hey, what's going on with all this water? Why don't I want what's my stomach's telling me something about pull-ups? And these are all things, as I've taken a peek into your community, are all and then women have questions, right? As those things happen, they're like, hey, what's going on? Or hey, my neighbor sprayed Windex 2 blocks away and I can smell it. What's going on?
Yeah.
And so it's I've always felt like it was that also, that it's this giant hub of resources of so many women kind of like-minded who wanted to have a healthy, to optimize their baby carrier, their body. And so it becomes a resource for all of that.
Yeah. I think 2 things to that point. One is pregnancy, especially in America, is so fear-driven, especially within the medical system. It is, it's, the hospital is designated to save you, to get you out of pain, and to fix sickness, And pregnancy is none of that. A low risk pregnancy, and who deems it low risk? One of the doctors and OBGYNs that we really love says high risk is just what that provider is uncomfortable doing, like what makes them uncomfortable, what makes them scared. There's no true high risk. It's just what they're uncomfortable with. And so I think we live in this world where we're taught to fear childbirth, to fear pregnancy. It's like, hey, don't eat the deli meat. Don't touch that sushi. That's going to be the game changer. But also make sure you have this shot, this shot, this shot, and this shot, but stay away from the deli meat, And so it's like, we live in this world where I think women are intuitively smart, and we were put on this earth to conceive, to have children. So we have this innate knowledge that I can't really explain, other than if the second you're pregnant, you have that motherly intuition. And I think what Birthfit does is it really reassures or affirms women that you knew this all along. You just needed someone to be on the side, like on your side of it, and not guiding you out of fear, to say it's not black and white. It's not this is bad, this is good. Every individual is so different. Every pregnancy is so different. So what's appropriate for one may or may not be appropriate for somebody else. But I think it's that validation to tap into that feminine intuition that we were gifted with and say, hey, the answers were here all along. I knew inside what was best for me, what was best for my baby, even if my provider said this, or my families or my friends said this. So I think Birthfit is that. It's that reassurance that, like, hey, moms, tap into the power of the fact that you have that motherly intuition. And then I think the second thing, like you said, with, the second you're pregnant, it's like, is this okay? Is that okay? And you've got this community. I think it's really, we live in a very masculine dominated world, especially if you think about fitness and nutrition. We've always lived in this, how fast are you moving? How much weight are you moving? How many calories? What are your macros? It's very measured. And pregnancy really calls us into the feminine side of that, where it's like, hey, we don't tell our bodies what it gets to do. We're going to be a little bit more intuitive in that. What does my body need? What is nourishing for my body? I'm not going to tell it how many calories it gets or this or that. I'm going to listen. So when you say your wife went from vegan to meat, it's like her body knew what it needed. She didn't need anyone to tell her what was right or wrong.
She didn't even talk about it. We walked right into a hamburger place and she ordered, and I looked at her and I'm like pinched myself. I'm like, I didn't say anything to her. And then we sat down and I watched her eat an entire burger bun, drink 2 bottles of water, and I'm like, who is this lady?
Right. Like she just knew. It's her body. It's like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think Birthfit, it takes nutrition and it takes lifestyle and it takes fitness, but we pull it a little bit more to the feminine than if you were just following like a strict program, right? And it allows women to tap into a side that I don't think they really knew existed about themselves. And I think that's so important because that learning to be in tune and communicating with your body and what your body is asking from you is also what's going to be necessary to tap into surrendering for birth and to be able to surrender to the chapter of postpartum being hard and being different and all of the challenges that come up. It's like this pregnancy is such a great teacher, and women know, but they've just been so misguided or pushed to, hey, follow these guidelines instead of what your body's telling you. And I think Birthfit's kind of that space where we're like, no, you don't need to hear the guidelines.
And Leah, like, so you may have this fantastic intellectual reason for not wanting to eat meat. You may nutritionally have understood why meat's bad for you. You may have these deep feelings of why you don't want to. You may have like this whole thing. You may be like, hey, I haven't had meat in 5 years and you don't want to break that. You may have all of these reasons, but then when your intuition talks to you, you will be intellectually gratified if you go that way, if you accept it. But there is this temptation to stick with what you knew before you were pregnant than to what actually now the message your body is telling you. Hey, I know this is in conflict to what you're practicing, but really actually you do need to be doing this. And and then another interesting thing is once my wife tapped into that, and she never let it go after she had the, you know what I mean? She got that gift and she kept it.
Yeah, it's like, I say it's like a muscle. When it early on, you're feeling it, you're hearing it, but you're like, oh, I'm unsure. The more you use it, the stronger it gets and the more you tap into it. To the point where, when we have to make big decisions, my husband and I, about our children, maybe it's a health decision, maybe it's, hey, this came up, because stuff comes up. It's like, oh, like there's a tooth infection, like random, where did that come from? We have to make decisions. And, I'll go to him and be like, what do you think? And he's like, when it comes to those things, he knows that my intuition on these things is so strong that he's like, not that he's not there to support me, but he's like, this is a decision you have to make. I'm here to support you, but you know the answer. Hearing my opinion doesn't really matter. And so it's like, he even knows the strength of my intuition when it comes to making decisions for our children. And he knows he doesn't have that. Like, he has good compass and guide on it, but he's like, I have to defer this to you, and I trust you, and I'm going to support you, but you know better. And I think that's so cool, because it's like, the more that you use it, the more it's so loud and it's so obvious. And you can look back at times where you're like, wow, I heard it then and I didn't listen, and it was right. It was never wrong, And I think it's important to distinguish. You have your intuition and you have the voice of fear, and you have to get good at deciphering what's what. But yeah, like you said, the more you use it, like, you don't go back on it. So it's like, hey, I don't really know how I feel about this decision. I don't really know if I'm in the same boat as what's coming up for me, but I'm going to trust that my body and my intuition knows best for my children. And I think that's such a cool gift that women get to tap into.
When I think of Birthfit, I think of it, it's interesting. You're saying it's a fitness and health program. I always think of it, when I think of it as just a major hub, a resource center. Like, it's a place where you can find doulas or midwives, or you can ask people questions. It is also that, right? And that I know Lindsay's starting a class coming up. I know you mentioned you guys have a new app. Tell me about we'll come back to the fitness stuff, but tell me about the resources outside of the movement and nutrition.
Yeah, so within Birthfit, we have a directory. So we have Birthfit, technically they're professionals. They could be OBGYNs, they could be chiropractors, pelvic floor PTs, midwives, doulas. We have a directory on our website, and coaches. We teach the Birthfit certification. So anyone who's working with women, we teach a coach's virtual online coach seminar every year. So we have boots on the ground. We have people with this education who can now take this within their communities. And that's really cool. And I would say that we think about things a certain way. We do things a certain way. So these are like-minded individuals where it's like, hey, I might have one within 30 minutes of my hometown. I could follow this online program, or I could go work with this person or work with this coach or this professional in person. So yeah, we have a ton of education. And I think it's funny because Birthfit is so much information that sometimes we're like, we got to reel it in. Here's what, like, people come to us for the fitness, but they usually leave with so much more. Lindsay is starting like a prenatal small group mentorship. So it's, hey, I'm pregnant and I have the next 6 months to have Lindsay's direct access. And maybe you don't have great professionals in your area. Maybe you don't have a doula. You don't know the questions to ask. And this is an opportunity to take someone who has dedicated, her adult life to this research, this information, and you have someone to literally mentor and walk you through this whole process. So I think we get super passionate about the information because, like we said, it's not mainstream. It's not what they're teaching you, but we have such a strong desire for better birth outcomes, for moms to have better experiences, for healthier babies. And, it's our future generations where we're like, the education, yes, fitness and movement is important, but the education around it, like, birth stays with you forever. So we want that whole experience to be as best as it could possibly be. And that's why we're here to kind of put the boots on the ground and have people spreading the knowledge that is Birthfit.
When my wife got pregnant, she was going to her OGBYN, and then we started these birthing classes. I think they were called hypnobirthing classes. And of course, we wanted the safest birth we could possibly have, right? Safe. And so we were organizing everything with the hospital, and we had heard about home birth and those types of things. And we just thought that was crazy, because if something goes wrong, you need to be in a hospital where someone can tend to the baby or to the woman right away. And then we were taking this birthing class, and this hypnobirthing class. It was a whole variety of people, right? There were people who were going to have hospital births, people who were planning having home births. There were people who were planning home births, ended up with hospital births. We went the other way, and it was kind of a little scary. But one day the lady teaching the class just pulled us aside and looked at us and goes, "Hey, why are you guys doing it sounds like you're doing a hospital birth." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And she said, "Well, the questions you're asking make it clear to me that you want to do a home birth." And I'm like, I thought she was crazy. My wife ended up doing a home birth. Does the Birthfit pipeline, is it open to anyone from wanting to be in the safest, sterilest, most surgically ready situation, to the person who wants to have the baby just out in the field next to the cow? Is it
Yeah,
pipeline accommodating for all those?
it is. Yes. We're going to be very honest in that how we feel the safest, and how we feel the safest, most effective route is, but understanding that hospitals, different things to different people. People have different experiences. We have people who are like, oh, I was sick as a child and I spent so much time in a hospital getting poked and prodded. And, like, that is not a safe space for me to surrender to giving birth. I want nothing to do with the hospital. And then you have others who have had traumatic experiences where the hospital did save them. And they're like, I feel comfortable here. I'm not going to tell you where to birth, but we want to give the information so that you can truly make a decision that aligns with your values and what you truly want, and that's not out of fear. And so the biggest thing we hear with hospital is, but what if, right? What if this happens? Or just in that moment. And you say the word safe, it's like, it's relative. There's nothing in life is safe. You could, get in the car right now and have a car accident. Like, we don't know, but we get in the car all the time and we don't question it. So safety, there's no guarantees in birth. We don't know. You could have the most perfect plan, the best provider possible, the best team, the most healthy pregnancy, and something could happen. There's no guarantees, regardless of what setting you're in. But we like to inform people where it's like, okay, the hospital feels like the safest place for you, because what if I hemorrhage? Well, what if you hemorrhaged because they rushed things and they kind of tore the placenta out of your body and it wasn't quite ready and they caused that? Like they're there to fix it, but they also caused it.
Right.
And you have statistics that are like, America has the highest maternal mortality rate of all industrialized countries.
Wow.
And the second
That means
highest
babies being born
infants.
dead. When you say mortality, that means the second highest of babies being born dead.
Yes, and we spend $98 billion on birth a year here, and 99% of documented births are happening in a hospital. So it's not the 1% that's happening out of the hospital that's causing these numbers. So I just like people to know that things also can happen in a hospital,
Right.
and death also occurs in a hospital. And I don't say that to scare people. I just need them to have that light bulb moment that there's nothing guaranteed in life. So do you really feel safer in the hospital, or have you been led to believe that that's what's true, despite us knowing that statistically, we actually see better percentages on outcomes outside of the hospital? And it's not to say, all providers aren't equal. There's out of hospital providers that are less than ideal too. So I think it's really like our goal is that education where it's like, you have this information, now use that motherly intuition, get clear on your values, what you want as a family, and like, does the hospital really align with you, or would you prefer to be out of that medical system? And you make that decision. Don't do it because you're scared of something that could possibly happen.
One of our babies was born not breathing. It had to be resuscitated. This is at home. And later, when I was talking to people, they said that, hey, if that would have happened in a hospital, the baby would have been taken away from the mom.
Mhm.
And but since we had it at home, it was resuscitated. And what seemed like an hour to me, but when I look at the birthing notes, it was 90 seconds later, the baby was breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And so to speak to what you were saying, in the name of safety, the baby would have ended up going to, 3
NICU.
weeks of somewhere else. Yeah. And never got a chance to breastfeed. Instead, it went straight to the boob.
And think about
They
like
just,
your wife's mental health there, trying to pump and supply milk to get it to the NICU and being separated from her newborn. Like biologically, that's not how it was designed to be. And the baby thrives and regulates. Like they don't know that they are separate from their mom. They thrive, their temperature regulates, their reflexes start to come to life when they are on their mother. So to be separated and that crucial window, of course, there's a time and a place for that where intervention is necessary. But in a moment like that, it's like baby is going to thrive when it's on their mother and it's doing biologically what birth was intended to do.
yeah. I'm trying to stay impartial, but yeah, I have very strong feelings. And by no means do I want to suggest it's easy. I don't know how my wife, the thought, especially the first baby, well, maybe even the second and third, but the thought of having a baby and doing it alone and pushing it out is what a challenge to face and think about for 9 months, right? You get pregnant and you're like, oh my God, this thing is going to pass through me. And kudos to all the women who manage those thoughts around that and then do it. I will say this, after my wife had the baby, was those 24 or 48 hours were probably the best 48 hours of her life. I mean, it's like
The
winning,
birth high.
yeah, it was like winning every gold medal at the Olympics, all 1,000 of them or whatever.
It's unmatched. And of course, there's the unknown, and there's always going to be some fears around the unknown. And
Yeah.
That's always there. But it's funny, within the Birthfit community, we hear a lot of birth stories and people talking about their experiences. And, it's funny, oftentimes they don't talk about it being painful. They're like, it's intense. Whereas when you hear different communities, they're like, oh, it was the worst thing ever. It was the worst pain ever. And it's just like a switch of mindset. I think when you train a certain way, you have this knowledge, you have this information. Like I go into it, I know it's going to be hard. It's going to be the most intense thing you've ever done. But it's almost like this psychedelic, euphoric high that is unmatched when you allow it to be. And when you're not fearing it, but you kind of trust your body's ability to do it, it's like I always talk to people and I'm like, I don't want to have any more kids. I'm done having kids, but I would love to just give birth one more time. Like giving birth is the coolest thing ever. And people are like, that's so weird, because you're just taught that giving birth is like, you should be scared of it. It's terrible. And I'm like, no, what an amazing experience that you may or may not ever get to experience. But if you do, it's a very small amount of times. And so I think our community, you start to adopt this mindset around birth where it's like, there's some fear in the unknown, sure, but this is going to be one of the coolest rides and experiences that we get to have.
And her perception of herself forever changed. It's like having a medal that never goes away, and an accomplishment. And then also, for me, my perception of her changed, and of the baby, and of everything. It's just like a whole shift.
It's like I hear it all the time, because early postpartum women they don't feel good about themselves. Their bodies are different. They're squishy. And it's like their husband just witnessed this and they think they're the most sexy, beautiful human beings on the face of this earth. And you're like, how can you think this is beautiful? And like your husband's, I still remember Asia will be like, you were like hot before, like you're beautiful now. Like you have mom curves. And like, that was the coolest thing. Like he had this like whole new level of attraction and appreciation for me. And I was like, that's so cool that you can go through this. And in my head, it's like, oh, I used to be so much better. And he's like, no, like this version of you is so much better.
Everything changes. Your wife's face changes, her hair changes, her wrinkles change, her eye, everything. It's almost like someone sprinkled angel dust on them.
It's wild.
Yeah. And it's actually really cool to see other people's wives go through that too. I always make sure to point that out to husbands, like, hey dude, look what's happening to your wife. She's turning into an angel.
Got a weird shadow here. Okay. Yeah, it's so cool. And I think when you can look at it from that lens, it takes so much of the ick out of postpartum. Like, ooh, I don't like this. And I think that's so important for men to hear, is like hearing my husband tell me all the time, and not just like in a cheesy, like, oh, you're so beautiful way, but like he really meant it. And it was like, I could just tell he had this new level of attraction and appreciation for me. And he wasn't shy in letting me know. And it was like, I so needed that in that postpartum period, because it would be so easy to get down on myself. So I think like men have such, like, it's always like, where do I show up as the male? I can't really do anything. The baby wants to be with mom. Mom does everything. And like those little things as a husband, or as like the support and the partner, is like, it's so crucial. And I don't think I even noticed it in the moment, but looking back, I was like, wow, I needed to hear those things. Like that made me change my whole perspective of things.
And for the husbands out there who aren't, even while they're pregnant, for me, I really enjoyed just watching my wife's body while she was pregnant. It was crazy. It's just crazy. Like, don't waste a second not staring and ogling your wife's body as she goes through pregnancy. It is an absolute, it's just a miracle. It's like just endless appreciation. You can just it's crazy. And it's your kid that's in there.
Yeah.
It's your kid that's in there. Emma Weens, thanks for sharing this, Emma. I'm dealing with a potential epidural injury. What is epidurals? What is that? That's some numbing agent for having.
Yeah, they put it in the spine or like in the back. Yeah.
And having so much regret that I had my baby in a hospital. Hindsight is always 20/20. Hey, thanks for sharing that.
It doesn't have to be regret. When we know better, we do different. But when we don't know, I mean, that's like the number one thing I hear is, I wish I would have ran into you 10 years ago when I was having kids. You have the birth that you needed to have, and every birth has a lesson and you learn things from it. It's not an epidural. We deal with that all of the time. There's going to be potential. And that's another thing. So with epidurals, it's like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. You don't feel it. And then now, 10 years later, you have back pain from it, and you have headaches, and you have numbness, and there's all of these side effects that you didn't even know existed. You didn't know that epidurals now have fentanyl in them, and that's going into your baby, like in an opioid crisis, right? It's like our babies aren't even born without drugs in their body. And so it's like, the more we know, the better we can do. That's why this information is important. But also, having that informed information where it's like, oh, maybe the epidural is so great, but also, do I want that in my body or my baby? Or do I want to worry about the effects of it 10 years down the road? Like, those are things that are not really ever discussed in the setting when it's like, hey, you're 6 centimeters, you've been in labor for 24 hours, you're in pain, let me just go ahead and take that away from you. It's like, can we have a conversation about this in a different way?
That was one of the things that the birthing class taught me that was cool. They gave you the tools for that. They said, hey, as the husband, you need to find out your wife's plan. So if your wife wants to have a natural birth, when they come in and offer the epidural, I'll never forget this. They said, what you need to say to the person is, hey, I need 2 minutes alone with my wife to talk about this. And then when they leave the room, then you work on the breathing techniques, the affirmation, you remind her of the plan, you let her know you're there, that she can do this. But they give you those tools to, it's kind of interesting. Even though the birthing class gives you the tools to kind of allow her to create space so that she can get to her plan. And it's kind of sad that the hospital's there, even though they know the plan, they're kind of always trying to
dangling the carrot.
Yeah. They're trying to derail it. And my wife's OBGYN, in her defense, she did say, hey, I'm singularly focused on looking for things to go wrong.
Yeah, they're doing their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not bad. And that educationally, that's what they learn. And they don't learn breech birth anymore. And so now, oh, your baby's breech and it's not turning. So it's so butt down or feet down instead of head down. And they stopped teaching that in the 70s. So now, unless you have a really old doctor, they just weren't taught how to deliver breech. It's not high risk. It's normal. It's a variation of normal, but they weren't taught it. So it's an automatic, almost always an automatic C-section now, unless you have a provider that's done continuing education and they're comfortable with it. Or a midwife who is typically comfortable with it. But it's like, so our C-section rate is through the roof. Over double what it should be according to the World Health Organization, which is probably already too high.
Yep.
And it's like, but we're going to just give a C-section to anyone that's breech because none of our providers know how to deliver breech. And like, that's what's cool with the current movement, the whole MAHA and RFK, and he's getting, all these people are on board where it's like, oh, we actually have obstetricians who are being petitioned to work with him who teach breech and who deliver different ways. And it's like, imagine if we could just reformulate these textbooks that are 100 years old and teach people in obstetrician or in school, basically, how to deliver a breech baby. It's totally doable. You can go to a weekend seminar and learn, not to say that you don't need to practice, but you could learn if it's there. And so it's like, we're not even making steps to go back in the right direction until we get people in play that are willing to do it.
Right. Missy Beth, doula is a support person. Anyone can take a class and be trained. Midwives are registered nurses who get a master's degree to practice medicine and deliver babies.
Yes. So you can be a nurse midwife or a professional midwife. You don't have to be a nurse or have a nurse's license. You could be a CPM, which is a professional midwife. So either way, they're great. I highly recommend interviewing some, talking to some, if that's, the route you want to go, or even if it's not the route you want to go, why not just talk to some? But yes, a doula is there as like your emotional support person, creating the atmosphere, hands-on massage, touch, comfort measures, pressure points, almost like a coach. If you're in the fitness realm, like they're coaching you to birth. Whereas the midwife or the doctor is the one doing internal exams, taking blood pressure, delivering the baby. They're more hands-on in that regard.
And I guess the birthing class was like a crash course for me to be a doula. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But they tell you like where to press, where to hold skin together, how to use the back of your hands to massage with your finger, the back of your fingers, how to support them. They give you all of make sure that they're hydrated, food, all those. That's what I learned for it. How to be a advocate for your wife. So you're kind of like, as the husband, you're kind of like, if you take the birthing class, you kind of get a crash course in doula. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I think, and it depends on your personality as a male too, because I am a doula, so I've seen a lot of husbands in the setting, and some are very hands-on, and they're like, we work great as a team. She wants him. Like, I'm almost a doula for the husband, where it's like, hey, I'm going to go in here and do a couple things and kind of because it's their first time too, you know? So it's like, I know what to do and we practice this, but when's the right time to go in there and get my hands dirty, you know?
Yeah, the doula
So,
would tell me, now's the time to do this, go get this. She kind of was the lead doula. I was like the
yeah.
assistant doula. Yeah.
Like I want to work with them as a team. And if it's like, hey, like if I'm using myself for an example, if myself in Asia, or if I'm giving birth, it was like, I want you to emotionally be there for me and be on standby when I'm like, I need you. But also I want my doula to be the one who's like doing all the comfort measures. Like I knew what I wanted from him and what I wanted from her.
Yeah.
Other dynamics are different. And then sometimes dads are like, I need to sit back. Like that's not for me, but I'll be there when the baby's ready to come and I need you to do the work. Like it kind of just depends on the dynamic of the relationship. But yeah, like going to a class and just knowing like, hey, okay, the hip squeeze. I know my wife likes this and she likes this pressure and we practice it and you'll feel a little bit more comfortable and involved in the process.
There's some funny comments in here. My wife says this lady's tripping.
Fair.
I had 3 babies out of the hospital. It was insanely painful. Fair. Full transparency. It felt like someone lit a lighter and held it under my vagina. I wouldn't call it easy, but definitely gives you superhuman powers.
Yeah. The ring of fire. There's a reason they call it that.
Jeffrey Birchfield. Good morning. So Birthfit is primarily a training program, not necessarily advocating for home or hospital birth.
Yeah, you can come and just get your fitness on. We're going to have education and we're going to talk about real things and we're not going to sugarcoat things, but we absolutely will support whatever you support. We're here to support you in this process and whatever birth you desire. But yes, when you're coming to us, you're going to get a fitness program. If you're pregnant, we've got trimester, full prenatal programs. When you're postpartum, we have all of the rehab, the recovery, all of those things. Yeah.
God, it's crazy how engaged people are in birthing classes and birthing podcast. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you'll get a lot of different opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's fun. And yeah. Dude, 3 kids and you were in pain for all of them. Like respect, like good job.
Yeah.
No fixing that. Even my wife, after, she watched all these birthing videos, she did the hypnobirthing class. She had 3 babies. She's like, mine look like none of those ones where the lady just like, it swims out of her vagina into the pool.
I've seen a lot of births and I have one client who is the most silent. She doesn't tense up. She doesn't increase her breathing. She just makes me hip squeeze. And I say she's my easiest and my hardest client because like, if you sit, like, it's like chest pump, like you're cramping.
Or the next day.
And I'm like, I can't squeeze anymore. I can't feel my arms. So I like slightly let go. She's like, nope, squeeze. But no other signs. We have no idea where she's at. She hasn't been checked. And like out of nowhere, a little face like slides out under the water. And you're like, where did that come from? Usually it's very primal. It's loud. There's noises. It's grunting. It's, when the baby's coming. And it's the most bizarre thing. She's the one client I have that like, I'm just like, oh, and then a face just slides right out looking at me. I'm like, how does that happen?
The first baby, we lived in this big apartment complex with 8 units around us. And at 3 a.m, a neighbor knocked on the door and he goes, and he's in his pajamas. Is everything okay? Are you guys okay? I'm like, we're having a baby in here. He's like, oh, okay. And he was the unit furthest away from us. So that meant the whole complex.
Everyone heard it. Yeah.
My wife having a baby.
And you don't care in that moment. You're like, I don't care what happens. I don't care if anything happens, but you got to do what you got to do. It's very primal. I had relatively quick and what people would consider streamline, easier births. And my husband was like, you were yelling like a banshee. But it was, my thought of it, I was like, oh, that was it. You don't even remember that, I feel like, but it's so primal. You don't expect it. I've had women that are like, I'm super quiet. I'm super conservative. I don't like to be heard. And then birth happens and they're like butt naked and they're making noises.
Yeah.
It's just this whole different experience.
It reminds me of kind of like people who are really high on drugs, like you're in a room and someone took too many hits of Molly and they just ripped off all their clothes and they're walking around. It was literally like that. Like you get a little bit into it and 0 fucks given.
You are the most extreme version of yourself. Yeah.
No fixing that. So many women have back pain from epidurals. I didn't know that.
Yeah. That
from the drugs or the damage the needle does.
Yeah, the needle. I mean, it's a large needle and they're putting it in the back. And then you're administering drugs there. I'm sure that has something to do with it, but you can get low back pain. You can have numbness. Anytime you're messing with the spine, I feel like it's always a little, you don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, we hear it all the time.
One of our moms, I'm a nurse, planned a vaginal birth, and she needed a C-section because her placenta was in a dangerous place. I wonder what that means. Her midwife fought us on it, but we convinced her to get it.
Like placenta previa. So your placenta can be covering the cervix.
Oh,
and that could be a problem. If it's a true placenta previa, yes. Yeah.
So there's an opening and the baby needs to come out of it, but the placenta's
in the way.
Oh.
So that would be a risk of
right down and shake her.
Yeah, come on out. It could be a risk if it's a true placenta previa. Sometimes they diagnose it. It can move in pregnancy. It will change as belly expands. So yes, sometimes a doctor says at the 20-week ultrasound, you have a placenta previa, you're going to have a C-section. It's like, well, we still have quite a bit of time to see if things move. But sometimes it is a true placenta previa that is absolutely a high risk and cause for a C-section. And then other times it's a partial and they're willing to see if it moves. So again, it's all relative to like, do we have the information, the ultrasound that shows it, where it is in relation to pregnancy? Yes, there is a time and a place for cesareans and things like that. It's just not as often as it's done.
It's funny, this morning before the podcast, I was like, man, I wonder what we're going to talk about. Boy, I'm not wondering that now. Leah has come on to, announce and share with you some of the new things that they have and new technologies they have via apps and new programs and updated and better pictures and different programs. We will get to that, but let's just keep going down this path for now. At what stage would a woman start to interact with Birthfit?
Oh, anytime that you are, I would say like anytime in pregnancy, we have fitness programs for that. We do have some preconception work. So like Lindsay's doing, we just had a preconception pop up, like free information, come to this and we'll talk about things that you can do if you're within a year of wanting to conceive. So you can come to us really anytime. And then postpartum. And we have women who are like, I have teenagers. I don't plan on having other kids, but I never healed postpartum. And I have these symptoms. I don't like peeing my pants. I feel like, I feel pressure. I have pain during intercourse, whatever it is. It's like, those are all core pelvic floor dysfunctions. And those are things that our programs cater to. So really anytime that you're within what we call that motherhood transition, preconception through postpartum, we've usually got something for you there.
So basically anytime, if you're thinking about having a baby, there's resources. If you've already had a baby, there's resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're constantly we're working right now on like
Do you have a dating app? Do you have a dating app built into it?
Most of the women we work with are not single, but I'm not saying that there's not some outliers.
If you want to get pregnant, click here on Birthfit.
If you have a pregnant fetish, click here.
Okay. This is cool. Christian, thanks for sharing this. We have 2 kids, has had to have a episiotomy both times. We have a third coming in early January and doing our first home birth. So that's a common theme in the scare culture is once you've gone hospital or once you've had a C-section or once you've taken these paths, you can never go back.
Yeah, we have VBAC. So VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean, or a VBAC after vaginal birth after 2 cesareans, or like you had an episiotomy, which is just a cut down there to create more space. Sometimes done to prevent tearing, sometimes done to be a little bit easier on the provider. There's different reasons for it. But yeah, so you can totally, you want to find a VBAC friendly provider. There is risk, but it's not as marginal, like huge of a risk as a lot of people think oftentimes.
What about the C-section makes it so that vaginal birth is then becomes more risky or whatever, however you'd word it?
Because there can be a rupture where the scar was.
Okay. So when you had the C-section, it compromised the integrity of the musculature?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there's that, there could be, and I think I used to know the percentage, but I wanted to say it was like for 1 C-section, it was like less than 1%. And then for 2, it was like less than 3%. And it also depends on the way that they cut it. So there's vertical lines versus horizontal lines, and there's more risk vertical because it goes lower down, and there's some different risks there. So you definitely, and that's why like an out of hospital provider, I think a lot of people think you're like finding these granola women on the corner of the street. Like they're not going to lose their medical license over saying like, I think this is high risk, but I'm going to take it anyways. They're going to be real with you. They're going to say there is a risk here, or if they think that you need to transfer at any time or things like that, like typically they're going to have that conversation with you. So they are very experienced. Like my midwife, for example, is over 35 years and several thousand births of experience, has never lost a baby or a mom. Her transfer rate's so low. So you kind of learn these things, and you realize that, yes, there's risk in anything that we do. But to have that opportunity, if you wanted the out of hospital birth, like go for it. If they deem that you are a good candidate for it. Yeah.
I will say this, our midwives told us that, hey, there's no one more concerned about you than us. And if at any moment we think that you need to go to the hospital, we're taking you to the hospital. Like we're the last people who want something to go wrong. So like we're gonna be like we're gonna make sure that if you need to go to the hospital, you go to the hospital, which was very settling for us.
I had the same, like in my team, it was like, if at any moment they tell me I need to go, I don't even need to ask questions. I know that they have my best interest at heart. I'll be like, cool, let's go. I'm not going to fight you on it. It is important to find a provider that you can build that trust with, for sure. But yeah, I felt so at peace and safe in knowing that they were going to make that call for me. She has so much more experience than I could ever dream of having. Like she's seen it all. And what people don't realize is if something is truly, like most transfers, even from out of hospital into transferring into hospital in labor, are not emergent. Usually it's first time moms who want some rest or they want some pain relief. Or we're seeing signs trending that way. We don't like the heart tones of the baby. They're not bad yet, not concerning yet, but if they continue to go that way, it could become emergent. So are you open to transferring now so we don't get to that point? So these conversations are had. Very rarely is it, we need to get in an ambulance and we need to transfer you immediately. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it's so rare. And one thing that midwives in my experience are so gifted at is within the medical model, your OBGYN is given about 10 or 15 minutes to spend with you on your visit. So you wait for an hour in the waiting room and then you get to go in. They ask the 5 questions. They've got to check those boxes. How's everything going? Cool. I've got to go see the next person. They don't get to know you. My first intake with my midwife is 90 minutes. And every appointment after that is an hour until you get to the end is 30 minutes. So at the end of my pregnancy, my midwife knows what's normal. When I show up and I'm not myself, she's asking questions. When I'm going out of the bathroom to pee and, do all the stuff for her, she's talking to my husband. She's like, how's everything going? And like, she knows us to the point where if something is starting to trend in the direction she doesn't like, she has a feel and a pulse on that so much earlier than when it's an actual emergent situation, because she's spent that time and built that relationship with us. So I think people often think that it's just very like sudden, we have to get to the hospital immediately. That's usually not the case.
When we were going to the OGBYN, at one point I asked her, hey, so will you be there at the birth? And she snapped at me. She goes, what do you think? I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can't tell you that. And she really got angry with me. And I will remember this. The best part, I think one of the best parts for my wife about having a midwife is literally the lady comes over with like a doctor bag all the way up to the birth. My wife lays naked on the bed. I sit on the bed next to her and I'm there for every one of her appointments. And then she leaves. And then after the baby comes, all the doctor visits are just right there on your bed. You just take off your clothes, lay on your bed. Your husband can be there and you just shoot the shit about what's going on with their body. You can ask any questions. And there was never any time. Like 90 minutes is a long time. It's like, yeah, like you're done. At one point you're like, all right, bye. You're like, midwife, we're done,
Yeah.
And boy, my wife really liked that. My wife really liked just being on her own bed with her husband there, not have to go to the hospital. The baby's there.
They clean up afterwards. I'm like, I'm in clean sheets and everything's in the laundry room getting washed. And it's like I'm home and I have home cooked meals. And I mean, that part is amazing about home birth for sure.
And I meant just like the months afterwards,
Yeah.
like they just come to your house and you do all
Yep.
your appointments there. Yeah, it's great. And you see some old school shit. It was so funny when they weigh the baby. Like you feel like
Yeah.
1920s. They pull out a spring.
Yeah, they hang them in the little swing. Yeah. It's like an art. I feel like my midwife is like a very grandmotherly person, but you sit down and you're like, I want to tell you, like, I remember my husband coming to meet her the first time and he was like, I'm going to give you a hug. I feel like I just know you, like we just had that instant, almost like motherly. And I think that's so important too, because a lot of women have interesting relationships with their own moms. And so you almost need that nurturing. I did.
Yeah.
So to have that like almost motherly, grandmotherly figure who like genuinely loved and cared for me and showed up for me was like a whole other level of comfort that I didn't know would exist. And I always tell her I'm done having kids. And if I had another one, I would want to do more of like a free birth, completely hands off. But I'm like, I just want you in the room. I just want you there.
Yeah.
Like her presence is so, it brings me the comfort and the peace that I need to do what I need to do to give birth. So it was really cool to have that relationship with her.
My wife had 2 midwives and they would alternate visits, and one of them had 4 kids and was like pretty neurotic and like had all the questions and answers and like all the information, and then the other one had no kids and was just like calm and just was my wife's like psychiatrist. So one was kind of like her doctor, and one it was an insane team. It was great.
It's cool. Yeah, it's a cool dynamic to have a team that you've
Yeah.
selected and you've bonded with versus like, this is who I'm assigned with, and they might not even be there the day that I show up. Like that was important for me for sure.
My mom had all 4 kids naturally. I have no clue how women are so good with pain. Once I got at 8 centimeters, I felt like a truck was running me over. Jody Lynn, I had a VBAC at 15 months after my first child. It was a beautiful birth. I believe VBAC is no longer performed.
They are. You just got to find a provider that's on board with it and supportive of it. Yeah, but they definitely are. And I would say, like, when people say I don't know how you do it, it's a mindset. And I'm sure people are like this bitch, like a mindset, really, But it is. It's
Valid response too.
I mean, it really is. We all have the same parts. We can all do it. Birth does bring us different things, and sometimes it's not in the cards, and that's okay too. But I think having the right team, the right atmosphere, the right preparation, birth prep, all of those things, it goes into it, and you know that you are going to hit that point where you feel like I might die. Like there is no going back. I've got to get this baby out, and whatever that means, I'm going to do it. You kind of have to be willing to go there, and not everyone is, and that's okay. But you can have that experience. Like nobody has taken that from you.
You can have and you described it perfectly. My wife with the twins at one point was like, and I knew she wanted to say out loud, "I'm done. Take me to the hospital." She didn't say it. And afterwards, I'm like, "Were you going to say it?" She goes, "Yeah." But she hit a point like, "Hey, this is going to happen one way or another." Two VBACs here. Oh, thanks. This is a cool story, Stephanie. Both at home, one at bed and breakfast. Beautiful experience. That would have likely been miserable in the hospital.
So cool. I love it. I love a VBAC.
Nick Jones, good morning. My wife was planning for vaginal birth, but found out after 33 hours of labor that her pelvis was too narrow and our twins weren't going to be able to fit through. 40 minutes later, C-section delivery. I always get suspect when I hear that line. My wife's pelvis was too narrow.
Yeah, pelvises come in different shapes for sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes babies navigate through, sometimes they don't. To be able to say it's too narrow or it's not going to work, I mean, it's a red flag for me. It's not saying that that's not accurate, but it's like, how do you know? And usually twins are a little bit smaller, not always. You just never know. You never know. And I don't like to, I mean, you had the birth that you had, and who's to go back and say like, oh, what if I did something different? But yeah, those are things that come up in a hospital more often than out of a hospital, where you're like, oh, I heard that. Like we just put out a post that was like, just a reminder, it's the holiday season. That's not means for an induction. Just because it's Thanksgiving week doesn't mean that now all of a sudden your baby's too big and you need to be induced this weekend because your doctor's going to go out of town to see family next week. So yeah, you hear a lot of things, and sometimes they are accurate 100%. I'm not completely discounting it, but sometimes it's like, providers are human beings too, and they have schedules and agendas, and who's to say that they're not feeding you some things to kind of help themselves out sometimes. So I think that's why it's important to have a doula or an advocate or someone that you know can pause and, hey, let's ask some questions here. But also when you're in labor and you're worried about your babies and you're given any doubt that something could happen, you know, any mom is going to say, do what you need to do to get the babies out safely.
For those of you who don't know, my wife was 20 hours in labor. It looked like the baby was going to come out just in 1 hour really quick. And then the baby went back in. She went another 19 hours. The baby came out. And then she came back to planet Earth and she was there. And then 3 hours later, the second baby was ready to come out. It was wild. So they came 5 hours apart and her total labor was 25 hours. She did get 2 hours of reprieve in the middle, but she had to go back to that place. But it was weird because she came, like, I didn't see my wife for 20 hours. She was like in that la la land. And then she came back and then she had to go again. I do think that our midwives were a little concerned. They seemed like I could tell. I was like, ooh, I'm reading something off of them. Yeah. But and the second baby did come out not breathing. But man.
I saw someone commented, and I wanted to say, someone was saying, I treated my 18-hour labor like an EMOM. CrossFit prepped me for birth. It's funny. So we in Birthfit in our training, starting in our second trimester, we do a lot of every minute on the minute style work because it does mimic a contraction. So a contraction has peak intensity at about 30 seconds. And if you think about an EMOM, you kind of build up to that and then you get rest before the next one. So it is kind of subconsciously training us that, like, hey, I can do something hard and be uncomfortable knowing that it's going to go away and I have a little rest before the next one. Yeah. So there is a lot of like thought and intention behind training. I will say the most transfers that I see as a doula who works closely with the local birth center are CrossFitters or weight training, like strength athletes, for a couple reasons. One, pelvic floors tend to be very tight. We don't know how to relax the pelvic floor because of years of lifting, back injuries, glutes are always turned on. So we have that really good concentric muscle contraction, not the release of the eccentric, the lengthening. So whenever my birth center hears I do CrossFit, I do this, they're like, you need to do Birthfit. You need to call Leah. She needs to be your doula, because it does take some intentionality. We do see a lot of transfers, not because they can't do it, but then the mental part of it. We're so used to being uncomfortable and to out fitnessing. Like, I can outdo the discomfort, but you can't out fitness birth. So learning that, hey, this isn't a workout. You actually do have to surrender and let it overcome you. But as an athlete, you become so good at hanging out in that discomfort. So there are things as CrossFitters, as competitive athletes, that we definitely take into consideration when I'm working with a competitive athlete in their birth process. Like, I'm working specifically with them on letting go of that control, on relaxing their pelvic floor, on doing things that they wouldn't typically do in their competitive setting.
The thing that finally pushed us over the edge to do a home birth is in the birthing class, the instructor told the story of a woman who was completely unconscious and her baby, and her body pushed the baby out by itself.
Like paralyzed or something. Yeah.
And she explained how that happens. Like, basically this chemical comes out and causes this muscle to go. This chemical comes out and causes this to relax. And she said, hey, you know, in a perfect world, you could almost say if the woman gets out of the way, the baby just falls out. And when I heard that story, I was like, okay, that one kind of pushed me over the edge. In Cali, the hospital wouldn't let me even try a VBAC, so I went the home birth route. Best experience ever. Hey, you're not even allowed to do twins at home in Cali. You have to. Isn't it amazing? There's all this concern about freedom of women's bodies, and yet there's all these rules about them actually even having the baby at home.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Kat, our admin at Birthfit, If you ever email Birthfit, she's who you talk to. So she had a surprise. Well, she found out at 38 weeks that she was having twins. She's in Montana, and you can't have a home birth with breech or with twins. And I think she like subconsciously knew. She didn't let her midwives check her, touch her belly at all the whole pregnancy, because she's like, I don't want to give them any reason to not be able to show up. And she did not want to go to the hospital. She had a child, so this wasn't her first rodeo. And she found out at 38 weeks that she had twins. And so it was like surprise twins.
No, for 38 weeks.
No, and she was like, if you look at the pictures, you're like, well, no shit, you're having twins. Like,
Yeah,
it was a twin belly.
Yeah, my wife didn't even look real.
I think she was just in that denial of like, I can't, even if I'm having twins, we can't know because I'm gonna have them out of the hospital. So anyways, her midwives ended up dropping, like, she was like, well, you haven't done an ultrasound, you can't confirm it, so let's just pretend like, you touched and you felt some kicks, who cares? And they ended up calling her and being like, we're actually not comfortable, we're gonna have to send you to the hospital. So she free birthed her twins. She ended up going like, I think 41 weeks. They were like almost 8 pounds, if not, they might have been 8-pound twins. Like, she just goes to show, like, she was very well nourished and prepared for this pregnancy, carried them 41 weeks, free birthed them at home. But it was the wildest thing. And she did, from like 38 to 41 weeks, the amount of research and things that she did to prep to have everything that she needed at home was remarkable. But yeah, I mean, women will do what they need to do to have the birth that they desire. And I think it's so cool. Like, I admire her so much to just rule out all of the fear and be like, nope, this is where I feel my babies are intended to come at home. And they did. And it was perfect.
Yeah, there was so much secrecy around the fact that the first baby didn't come until 43 or 44 weeks. And there was so much secrecy around that because of laws in California. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the second one, having the twins at home, it was the same thing. There was so much secrecy around that because we were breaking the law. My wife might even still tell me after the show, you can't say, even though it's been 8 years, she might be like, you can't say that.
Yeah.
But
it's wild.
It's pretty wild. Holy shit, I had my twins at 32. Damn, I'm so jealous. Oh, you have twins too. Wow. I didn't know that about you, Standy Randy. I didn't even know you were a girl. Alex Smith, thank you for your service. Nice redhead. It's tough in the moment to throw the bullshit flag to a doctor when you're fully dilated in second stage. Have to prep for this through a solid birth plan.
100%.
Yeah. He's referencing the fact that, like, you may have to stand up to your doctor and protect what your wife's desires are, so you have a strong plan in place. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not doing the prep ahead of time and you're just walking in like, I hope I have this birth this way, and then things go different, like, who are you the mom is in her primal brain. She's trying to give birth. She's not in the brain to be like, wait a minute, I didn't want this, so someone on her team would have to advocate. And if you're not prepped and you don't know what she wants or how to even approach the conversation, it's not going to happen in that setting.
So you guys have updated some stuff. Do you want to tell me about that? Is the app completely new, or it's just been updated?
Completely new. So we were previously on a different training app for our programs, which pregnancy is a unique thing to program for. So, a standard strength and conditioning app doesn't necessarily have the features that we really needed to have. So it wasn't previously the most user-friendly experience. So we now have a Birthfit app. And you can download the app. All of our programs are on there. And in the process of doing that.
Is it in the App Store, Leah?
Yes, Apple and Android.
Okay.
And in the process of doing that, I thought, hey, it's probably time to update and revamp our programs. So I have gone through, I'm still finishing third trimester prenatal, but everything else is done, and that will be done before the end of the year. So our programs are all in there. They're beautiful. It's way more user-friendly, videos for everything. And we've simplified it because we're all moms with kids now. And we realize gone are the days of driving to the gym and spending an hour there to get a workout in and driving home. So all of our workouts can now be done essentially with a set of dumbbells. A dumbbell and a kettlebell would be nice. 30 minutes is ideal. And you're going to get everything that you need through pregnancy, postpartum, everything. But everything is brand new, revamped on an app. It's user-friendly. It's beautiful. And we currently have our Black Friday sale. So it's our biggest sale of the year. All of our programs are 30% off right now as well.
Sorry, maybe I wasn't listening clearly as I was pulling it up. Are there programs for every stage before you're pregnant?
Yeah, we're working on our preconception still. So we don't have a specific preconception, but we have things that we recommend for preconception. But we have a prenatal basics and a postpartum basics. Those require no equipment. They take about 20 minutes. You could just do it in your living room. And that's going to be for someone who's newer to fitness or has been told to take things easy. Maybe you feel really nauseous. You don't really want to go get a full workout in, but you need some sort of movement, breathing, core, pelvic floor. Our basics programs are for that. And then we have like a postpartum training and prenatal training. Prenatal is first, second, and third trimester plus birth prep. And postpartum training is 12 weeks, continued from the Birthfit base. So the postpartum basics is like your core, pelvic floor, initial rehab. And then postpartum training builds strength and conditioning off of that.
And I see there's a community button. Is that where you interact with other people?
Yes. So we have a chat button. So within our programs, you have a program chat and then we have a community chat. So you could say, this is going on. What do y'all have for me? And other moms chime in and we chime in. Or maybe you're like, hey, I'm on this day and I have a question about the program and we can talk about that too. We have monthly support calls, lots of opportunities to just be within a community, ask questions, hear what other moms are going through, things like that.
When my wife went, we went to the hospital and they put that jelly on her stomach and they look at the babies. And the lady looked up at the screen and I was holding our first child. I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. And the lady asked us, did you do IVF? And I had no idea what that was. So I was just waiting for my wife to answer. And then my wife didn't answer. And then she asked again, did you guys do IVF? And then my wife said, no. And I go, I wonder what that is. And then she goes, well, there's 2 babies in here for sure. And then I looked up the screen and there were 2 bags with a kid in each bag. And, the lady right away said, oh, you're for sure going to need a C-section for this. Mm-hmm. And I remember that just like, it didn't faze me at all. It wasn't I was just like, yeah, this bitch is full of shit. She don't know my wife, but it rocked my wife.
Yeah.
Right. It put her on it ruined the next 2 hours. Yeah. It ruined the next 2 hours of her ride home. And until she called the midwife from the first. And then she's like, no, don't listen to her. But it's kind of crazy, the things that people will she just right away just offered that to my wife. Oh, you're for sure having a C-section with me.
Immediately.
Yeah. And it's she didn't know my wife. We'd never talked to her. And what's funny is the whole time, if you ask her any questions, if they're a boy or a girl, or are they healthy? She's like, I can't give you any information like that. I'm not allowed to tell you that. I'm just a technician.
Right.
But I did offer that my wife was going to have a C-section. And I just remember it kind of rocked my wife.
Oh yeah.
For a couple hours.
I mean, you would be shocked at things that you hear after ultrasounds or genetic testing, or, the number of times we've heard this, there's this percent chance that this could happen. Do you want to talk about termination or options? And people are like, wait, what? I just came in for a simple ultrasound and then they have a perfectly healthy baby and nothing actually came of it. And so, yeah, it's when you go looking, you will find things, but it's also technology and it's not foolproof. So even when you're using an ultrasound to say your baby's measuring big, I think we should do a C-section because I don't know if your pelvis is wide enough. It's we only can get, it could be up to a ½ pound either direction off on weight.
Right.
And I've seen some really tiny women deliver some 10+ pound babies. It's not black and white like that. So yeah, it's the more digging you do, the more information you're going to get. And then you're going to have to make decisions off of what comes of that. Yeah. But yeah, to just be told out of nowhere, you're having twins, that alone is huge. And then to just already you're I'm just settling in the fact that I'm pregnant and now I have twins and now you're throwing a C-section at me. That's a lot.
I went to a buddy of mine's my buddy's wife was having a baby, and I was in the room when they brought her into the room and they're getting her settled, and the doctor comes in and he goes, oh man, I've been here 2 months and I still haven't seen a live birth. I hope you're the first one. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm thinking to myself, First of all, why are you telling her that? And second of all, you've been here fucking 2 months and you haven't seen a vaginal fucking birth yet? They've all been C-sections? Like, bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just signs where it's like,
and that was before I had kids of my own, but I knew right away. I was like, that doesn't sound.
there, you can always, I'm sorry.
Intruder alert. Intruder alert.
My kids are probably messing with the dogs, but you can always fire your provider. You can always change your team up until the time of birth, So I think it is so important to know that like you do have to align with your providers. And if at any point you feel like you're not, you've got to make a change. And I think people are too afraid to do that. But it makes the world of difference. So I always give people that, like they work for you. You get to make these decisions too.
This is a crazy story. My cousin knocked up a Canadian while he was in the Navy, and the hospital didn't want to do a C-section and left her in labor for 36 hours till the baby died. Jeez, Sean, wow. What?
I've heard some military has some different guidelines too on like what they're allowed or not allowed to do and things like that. It's pretty crazy. Birthfit has a nonprofit, and our goal is to provide funding for doulas or midwives, birth support for military women. So if anyone listening has anyone in the military who needs support, who wants a doula, who potentially can't afford it, things like that, definitely check out the Birthfit nonprofit, and they can always apply. And we're always looking to give funds to support our military moms for sure.
That's really cool. Brianna, my mom was given 2 epidurals back to back, which stopped her heart, and then had to give her C-section to give birth to me. That wasn't necessary because of their mistake. Holy shit. Stopped her heart? Oh my goodness. Well, at least you were in a hospital.
Right?
Does Birthfit have access or provide grief counseling? My daughter had a late stillborn, a perfect baby until the 20-week checkup. There was developmental problems in the lungs and brain and passed.
That's a great question. We are working on a recovery program specific to loss. And so our programs right now, like our lying in program and our Birthfit, our postpartum basics, would be great, but we want to make it specifically for those who have experienced loss at any point. Our general recommendation is that you spend, as long as you were pregnant, is the amount of time you need intentionally spending in recovery. So if you were pregnant 20 weeks, having 20 weeks of a recovery plan. If you go full term, having that full term plan. So we are working in this new year on a program for loss specifically. Our programs right now are conducive for it. They could do it, but we want to add some tidbits in there that are specific to that.
Alex Smith, thank you. Important topic. Thanks, Sevi and Leah. Yeah, thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Alex.
Hey, Leah, what is the what's the deal with that stillbirths or babies that don't make it to full term? Like my wife had 2 miscarriages. The first one, none of them psychologically like challenging or emotionally challenging, both very physically challenging. Like both of them made it so she didn't want to get pregnant again. The first one, I want to say, I don't remember exactly, was it 10 weeks? And then the second one, they don't even know we never even went to the appointment where they see if there's a baby in there. Like they don't know if there's a kind of birth where there might not be a embryo in there, but the baby thinks there is.
Yeah.
But that one, she almost bled to death. That one, I put her in the bathtub. She started filling with blood, and then I carried her unconsciously with our first baby to the hospital, and they had to like bring her back to life. That one, she said she'd never have kids again after that, but she had the twins on accident. But she didn't go. Is there a point where like you get over a certain number of weeks that the woman connects with the baby and then the emotional stuff comes in? Is it different for every woman? Like why is it so emotional? I mean, obviously I get it if you're in the 8th month or if the baby dies during birth. I mean, that's fucking crazy.
Right.
But is there a point that something happens where the mom is connected to the baby and it just becomes this emotional, like you actually lost a baby?
I can't give you like a scientific proof, but like we always say that when you pee on a stick and you see the positive sign, like you are fully pregnant. And chemically, things are changing in your body. My personal belief is that this, whether you believe like that is a spirit that's a part of you that was inside of you. And people believe different things. People believe those spirits find their mother. They believe, that there's the egg and the sperm and it just makes it, or it's like they find you. And there's a lot of different beliefs, but I think part of being a mom, like the maternal aspect of it, is that was yours. You carried it. That was your life. And I think, regardless of when your views of when life is, it would be traumatic no matter what. I think it's something that lives with you. There's actually a really good book called Spirit Babies and how to connect with the spirits that you've lost, essentially, because there is something to that. Moms feel that pull and that like nurturance towards a baby they never met. That was, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And so it's interesting. I don't have like a specific answer for you other than I just think that things change immediately. Chemically there's a response, but I think spiritually there's a response. And it's like you've lost a part of you, but also that spirit is still yours. It's a spirit baby at this point. And so you're still the mother to that spirit. And I think there's something to that for sure. But I always recommend the book Spirit Babies for those who have gone through loss. Go ahead.
And there is a time when it is interesting. There is, I don't know what week it was, but there was a time when all of a sudden I saw her like interacting with the baby like it was out.
Yeah, and
it's not on week 1 or week 2, but all of a sudden there was a point where she's like, oh shit, like to her, like that baby wasn't real to me till it came out. Then it came out and instantaneously I was dad. But for her, there was some point in the pregnancy, I don't remember where she started interacting like it was already here.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see moms that are 9, 10 weeks pregnant. They're not showing in their hands. They're on their belly more. They're rubbing their belly. It's like they know that there's something there. They're connected to that. And I think, I think that's part of the way we were designed. I think that's part of the mothering and the nurturing is you can't explain it. And you don't try to do it. You're just unexplainably connected to this being inside of you.
Pivoting back to the app, does it cost money to download the app?
No.
So you can begin the journey for free.
Yeah, download the Birthfit app. Yep.
And there's resources there for people, just free resources there.
I would say our website probably has more at the moment until we figure all of the app out. Again, that part's not my specialty, the back end stuff. So there probably is, but our website's going to have, we have a Birthfit podcast, we have a blog, our newsletter comes out every week. Like we almost like drinking from a water hose. Any information that you could want to find, you could just Google search that word and Birthfit, and there's probably a blog or a podcast about it. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. And the program that Leah is that Lindsay's doing, I need to have her on, but is there anything that people need to know about that? Because it only happens once a year, right? So if you want to get in on it, you can't miss the window.
Yeah, so it starts in March this year. I think right now, you can sign up for it. We had a waiting list. It's a full-on mentorship. So it's a small group, and it is designed for you in pregnancy. So I would say you should be early, like just now finding out you're pregnant, maybe a month or so ago, because it's designed for those 6 months to kind of carry you through the bulk of your pregnancy. So if you are pregnant or if somebody just is finding out that they are, that would be, especially for first-time moms or moms who maybe did it one way the first time and would like to do it differently the second time, this will be an amazing resource for that. If you want that additional, almost like having a doula birth expert on hand all the time. We also have a lower price point birth prep course. So if you're just looking, it's 4 modules, few videos in each module, great for husband and wife or both of you to sit and watch. The first half of it is more about training, core, breathing, pelvic floor. The second half is your birth desires, preparing for birth, preparing for postpartum. So if you're looking for like a general crash course, I would look up our birth prep course. But if you're looking for more mentorship and guidance throughout, like almost like a pregnancy class, I would take the small group with Lindsay.
And there's also a, and by the way, glowing reviews of everything about Lindsay, by the way. Like, I've never heard one it's kind of crazy. She kind of reminds me of Chris Cooper over at Two Brain. Like, everyone who interacts with her and has the chance to work with her is like, holy shit, thank you. If can I find a gym in my, so you guys teach certifications also?
Yeah, we have Birthfit coaches. We just graduated a crew. So yeah, once they graduate, they'll be in our directory on our website. So we do have a directory. We try to keep that updated annually, so you can find Birthfit coaches in your area.
And they would just be at gyms. They would be like I would go to, like, I could find one and be like, oh, look, there's a CrossFit gym or an old CrossFit gym in my area, and they have a Birthfit coach, and then I just contact them.
And they have different ones do different things. Like we have some who run women's only gyms, or pregnancy specific classes, postpartum courses, things like that. And then others are just, they have that tool in their tool belt where if they're coaching the class, they're going to be able to accompany you and adjust things for you appropriately, versus the coach that's just like, if it feels good, do it, So they have the autonomy to do what they want with Birthfit, if they're running courses or specific classes, or if they're just using their knowledge to enhance their class experience for someone who's pregnant or postpartum.
Do you guys have anything that's in person? Any courses in person?
Not currently. We used to do our coach seminar in person, and we used to teach professionals. So we kind of used to have it separated. Coach, if you're working with women in an athletic capacity; coach, if you are a midwife, doula, whatever, you'd be professional chiropractor. Now we just do a coach course, and right now it's virtual. I think just because we're all in that window where we're a 4 or 5 woman company and we all have small kids. So gone are the days where we get to travel the world and teach. But I would love to have the opportunity. We've talked about retreats or things like that as well, just to have the opportunity to get people everyone who has been to an in-person Birthfit experience, it's life-changing. Like, they want that in-person connection. And there's something so special about getting that group of women together for that education. It's emotional, it's raw, it's amazing. So we do hope that happens again, but we're in that motherhood chapter of lives where we're also all home with our kids right now.
Yeah, that becomes your class too, right? You go to in our home birth class, all of those moms, regardless if they did C-section, hospital, home birth, they kind of stay as a class. And all those ladies, at least for a few years, stay in contact with each other, share pictures, share experiences. And so that's like your graduating class. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Lifelong friendships happen in those classes. It's pretty cool.
Anything you want to leave us with? It sounds like the app has been released, tons of resources. There's going to be a small window where things are 30% off.
Yeah, we're in that window now. So if you're looking for a program, or someone who is and you want to gift it, now's the time. Again, I mentioned our nonprofit. If you know someone in our military that could need some birth support, reach out to us. You can always just email us, info@birthfit.com, and we'll get you. We have a lot of things, so we want to make sure that you get set up for the right thing. So you can always reach out to us, but check out the website, check out the app. Know that we're tying up the loose ends. It should be ready to go 100% in January, but right now I'd say we're about 95% there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's good to catch up.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Tell Lindsay I said hi. You guys are always welcome anytime you want to come back on. Hey, what's crazy is, obviously you can see we could do a whole show of just interacting with the crowd. I mean, thank you to the crowd was amazing today. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank y'all. This is fun conversation, and it can be, it's different things for different people. So it's fun to engage and hear different perspectives and opinions and light bulb moments. So thank you all for engaging. Super fun. Someone said, will Asia be coming on?
Who's going to watch the kids?
I guess I'm back on the clock.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one, Svan.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. What a cool and crazy sponsor this show has, right? I wouldn't even call them a sponsor. I would just call them a supporter. How awesome. Babies. Yeah, one of my buddies, one of my husband and wife, who I'm very good friends with, I like a lot and trust a lot in my kind of homeschool circus circle. They just had a kid. He's awesome. He's like he just started crawling. babies are a trip because their feet are so fat and they have so much cushion that their toes don't touch the ground. And I always trip on that. Like the bottom of their foot sticks out past their toes. It's such a cool phenomenon. They're all perfect and shit. All right. That went fast. I was in a little bit of panic. I was like, man, what's I wonder what the topic's gonna be. But I guess there's endless stuff to talk about. Man, what a popular guest. I signed up for 11 a.m. Do you want to come? No, hell no. What the fuck? What is my wife thinking? I don't do Pilates on Friday. Plus my butt's sore from John Woolley ass pounding me yesterday. Let me see. Can't do Pilates. My butt's sore. My butthole. Woolley got a direct shot on my sphincter. Okay. Still recovering from all the comments I read. What's going on here? Is this going to ring or what? I wonder, hello? Oh, no, nothing. Recent. I know Pilates. I know. I went to one class and now she like sends me a text message this morning. You want to go to Pilates with me at 11? No. So Friday. I do Pilates on Sunday. Boobs are not. Oh yeah, hammers. I learned that from Tyson Bajan's dad, Travis. That's the first time I learned that term, hammers, as a term for boobs. Hammers. What a nice set of hammers. Look at those hammers. Someone just sent me a text. It says, if Katrin wouldn't have canceled Greg, there would have been no shortage of money for resources at the lake. And so it's Katrin's fault that Lazar's dead. Jesus. The butterfly effect. So funny. People were sending me clips of I guess Talking Elite Fitness after they cut off that part that they didn't want on there, the behind the scenes part. They cut that off, and then they reposted the whole thing, and then people have been sending me clips from that, and I can't figure out what they want. Listen, well, I can figure out wouldn't it be great? Everyone would love to read the investigation, right? I'd like to see Joe Biden's daughter's diary. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the Epstein list. I'd love to see the investigation. But I'd like it if all of you guys donated $1 right now. There's just shit that's just like, how are you upset when the machine is just doing what the machine does? People keep saying all CrossFit is interested in is money. I think Luca was saying that. It's like, dude, 99% of the people in the United States get up every morning to go to work and get money. It's just such an emotional outburst. Like what do you really want? Like you wanted Greg gone, you got Rosa. Rosa ended up being a moron. We got Don. Now Lazar dies, you want to get rid of Dave. Like what do you really want? Like your solution's always just to burn down. Like, what do you want? We want transparency. You know what? Someone was actually telling me, hey, I don't do Pilates on Friday. Haley.
Oh my gosh, my earbuds aren't working.
Hey, I don't do Pilates on Friday. You know that.
I did not know that. I didn't know you're so rigid.
All right. Thank you.
Sunday?
I'm taking it's my son's birthday. I'm going to be completely dedicated to him.
You're trying to make me feel like shit?
A little bit.
All right.
Did you listen to the podcast? Did you listen to the podcast?
No, I couldn't.
Oh.
I want to though. Leah was on.
Yeah, Leah was on. It was really good. She was great. There was one part where I just felt one part where it got a little squirrely. I thought maybe when I brought up miscarriages, and I felt like this change in the energy between us or something happened. I don't know what, but I was curious if you saw that and what you thought. Nothing bad,
okay.
nothing bad, but just that it's something. Maybe it got more emotionally charged or something.
Oh, well, did you say? Yeah, I'll just have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Did you say something like to trigger, or did you just bring it up?
Well, who knows? I mean, just the death of babies is an intense subject.
Well, yeah.
So I was just curious if you saw anything.
Totally.
All right. Sean Lenderman, I didn't feel that. Oh, okay, good. I mean, it's wasn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it in a bad way. All right.
Figure out our earbud situation.
All right.
Every time I put. Oh.
I love you. I'm going to talk about how John Woolley ass pounded me yesterday, and then come inside.
You're going to talk about what?
Nothing. I love you. Bye.
Okay. Sorry. Love you. Bye.
All right. Sorry, you guys have to see I'm so sorry you guys had to see the poor communication between me and my wife. Somebody needs to ass pound Tommy. He's such a douche. It's so funny how someone sent me a clip of him being like, John Woolley. I mean, it's so obvious. He must have seen the podcast yesterday, because he goes out of his way to be like, John Woolley called this from the beginning. John Woolley called. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. John Woolley has never called anything. He doesn't say anything. The only thing he's ever said is what he said yesterday when he ass pounded me. I took one right between the eyes. I saw like a 5-minute video of Talking Fitness episode and had to turn it off. The shit they were saying, they look so upset for God knows what. I know that's the part. I just wish they'd say what they're really upset. Like, just say it. I fucking hate Dave. He's been around fucking forever. He's just always been a dick. Blah blah blah. It's the same thing with So Woolley's whole. I watched like 2 minutes of Woolley's video and 5 minutes of Mitchell Hooper's video. And they start with these presuppositions that are just so insane. John Woolley starts with this presupposition that's basically like, hey, we always known Dave's a dick. He doesn't take great feedback, and some other shit that he said. And it's like, dude, no one who works with him thinks that, you moron. Just because he blocked you and you're a douche, no one thinks that. He takes, ask Chuck Carswell or Todd Widman or any of those guys. He fucking listens to those guys endlessly. Ask, who's the new girl? Ask Heather. Heather unfucks Dave all the time. Ask Boz. Boz has seen it all. You're telling me this guy that's run the most elite fitness competition in the world for fucking 18 years and someone fucking died once, and now you're just going to make this presupposition that he doesn't take feedback? And then you build your whole video off of just bullshit that you know nothing about? Dude, you're a fucking ATM mechanic who parades as some fucking corporate stooge at Bank of America. And when I meant ATM, I meant ass to mouth. Someone wrote in the comments, do you name call Woolley because he fucked you up and made you look like a clown? I said, yes, of course. Of course, that's why. I don't know what more information they want. It was deemed an accidental drowning, no criminal charges. What more do they want to know? Here's the thing. We all know what the investigation says. We all know. The investigation says that no laws were broken, minimal requirements were met by the rules of that fucking pond they were swimming at, and it coincides with the Triathlete National Foundation of skinny guys that love anal from Colorado Association. And but in these types of situations, the water temperature was awfully close to the legal limit, and having 6 more lifeguards, just the bare minimum requirements were met, but it's going to be like that. That's all it's going to be. And then they're going to be all pissed off about that too. Well, the bare minimum requirements, why didn't they go more? The local police just called it a they closed the case right away. You know what? I don't know if this is true, but I heard the local police closed the case right away. They just called it whatever, accidental drowning, because they actually, the day after or 2 days after that day, they had a cop standing on an on-ramp, and a guy came on the on-ramp the wrong direction and hit the cop and killed him, a drunk guy. That's a real story. I mean, even Lucas said some wild stuff, to be honest. I mean, yeah, his that's the thing. They're not saying anything. It's just emotional bleh. There's no realism to what they're saying. CrossFit just wants to make money. Okay. They don't care about lives. No, actually, they do care about lives. Under your first premise that they only care about money, the last thing they want to do is be killing people to fucking hurt their business. You moron. CrossFit killed Lazar. No, a piece of paper can't kill someone. It's just none of it's grounded in reality. Just none of it. It's just fucking emotional, just fucking insanity. It doesn't mean to say that, like, I don't want some of the same things that the fucking Lone Ranger squad wants, or fucking other people want. But you're not grounded in reality. You're just out to lunch. You're just a baby. And all those people, Mitchell Hooper starts, I'm not making this because I want to or some shit, but I'm doing this to speak up for people, because if other people speak up, there'll be retribution from CrossFit. Listen, dude, do you think that there's anyone anywhere in the CrossFit space who said more harsh shit about CrossFit than me or Souza or Hiller? And I got a fucking backstage pass at the games this year. It's all of these presuppositions, these precepts that aren't true. Woolie's just full of them. He makes up so much fucking nonsense. He just straight character assassination about Dave. I know Dom pretty well. I know Dave. I was at Greg's house once. I know. It's like, dude, you don't, like, literally, dude, you don't know anything. Your opinion doesn't matter. And so you make these false presuppositions in the first 30 seconds of your video and then build the whole thing off of that. I mean, even Lucas said some wild stuff, to be honest. I keep hearing a lot of people are not wanting to do the open now because no results on the investigation. It's honestly none of our business. It is none of our business. I guess it's none of my business, and maybe it's none of your business. The athletes who want to participate in the future of the CrossFit Games, it's not unrealistic to be like, for them to, they're so clusterfucked with their emotions on the situation. But intellectually, if they could just fucking ratchet down and think clearly, they could put something together that says, hey guys, it sucks that happened. We know you're doing your best. You've run this for 18 years. You've given away fucking $15 million. We appreciate everything you're doing. We are curious, obviously, since Lazar was one of our homies and he died, we are curious what happened to him. And we would like it to be prevented in the future once the actual problem is identified. Can you give us any inkling of what some like tangible things that you'll change in the future? I know you said you're not going to do any swim events, but what about water temperature or increased number of lifeguards in the water, anything like that. I just like to see, is there any way we could actually just take a peek at the action plan? Just like anything of any civility. And what's crazy is how many fucking athletes have died this year. I mean, you just last month, a girl fucking ran in a bike race, fucking world-class teenage triathlete or biker girl ran into a fucking tree, and they didn't find her for 2 hours, and when they found her, she was fucking dead in a race. And if they would have found her sooner, she could have been alive. It's like, dude, that's the sport. And as tragic as you want to paint it, that there were 500 people who watched Lazar drown and no one did a thing, that's the story with drownings. That's not like holy shit, every other drowning when there's been 500 people have rescued the person. That's the way those fucking things go. Sucks. There's precedent for it. No criminality. Yeah, that's another interesting thing. So imagine if some of these just psychopaths got their way. And they were like, hey, Dave and Don, you were in charge of this event. You're going to do 5 years in jail because someone died at it. Imagine, I bet you all those people who think that, we could find something in their life that they're attached to where someone died, where they should go to jail based on the same premise of their involvement. It's nuts. Those are the people who want to give away all personal accountability and responsibility. Those people would love the government to come over their house and check their anus every single day. I care more about the Epstein Island list, to be honest. Me too. There were results of the investigation, but not the results they wanted. Yeah, probably that too, right? I cared about Nicole Anna Smith. Me too. Damn, how old are you, Jake? God damn, she was insane, wasn't she? Oh my God. God, she was incredible. What a tragic story, right? Her son ODs and then she ODs. NJSB Construction, $9.99. Well, thank you. Facility management. Sevi, why do you think all of these celebs are fleeing? Anything to do with Epstein or Diddy? I haven't seen anyone fleeing, but I saw like the Berkeley Unified School District has put out like an emergency plan. Like they're completely freaking out. One of my friends has a couple of my friends have kids who go to school there, and they are completely freaking out that Trump's elected. Like they think like someone's gonna come get all the tranny kids and take them to Auschwitz. It's fucking nuts, dude. You wouldn't believe the stuff they send out to their kids there. I should pull up the letter the superintendent just sent out to all the parents in the districts. It is batshit crazy. There are legitimately libtards all over the country that are freaking out. Absolutely freaking out that boys aren't going to be allowed in girls' restrooms anymore. It is nuts. Yeah, I was reading the resume of the lady who's the superintendent of schools in Berkeley, and the premier thing in her resume is that she's a lifelong activist. Like, I want an activist to be my superintendent of schools. Oh, Quincy Jones died. Really? Recently? Jake Chapman, people wanting to flee because of the people in charge. Sounds familiar. Hashtag pilgrims. Lib media, people have been claiming with all the fake seriousness they can muster up that Trump will put people in camps. Isn't it nuts? He's gonna so for people like me, I view Trump as taking the chains off of me, right? I'm gonna be unshackled. I'm having hopes that I'm gonna be let free. And then there's another cohort for some reason that thinks they're going to be shackled. It's Bizarro World. Hey, the name of that show, what's the name of the show that comes before Game of Thrones? Into the Fire. What's that show? Blowjob Game of Thrones. I wonder if I can. Just porn pops up. Game of Thrones blowjob scene. No. Oh, House of Dragon. Here it is. Fuck. Of course, it's on Reddit. There was really. Listen, this is what I'm just looking in YouTube. It says there was a really graphic blowjob scene at the brothel. This scene must have been cut out when I was watching. For reference, I was watching on the Australian. Yeah, my wife was watching House of the Dragon, and they actually show someone getting blown. I don't think that should be on my TV. Does that make me a censorship guy? Like, blowjobs should stay on my phone and my computer. I guess there's no distinction. Yeah, shaft and all. Dude, the whole thing, the helmet, it was crazy. My wife's like, hey, come here. I want to show you something. I walk into the room. I'm like, and I'm already like rolling my eyes. Like, my wife, like half the stuff my wife sends me on Instagram that she thinks is funny, I just think is like not funny at all. My wife loves like Kamala impersonations. I'm not into Kamala impersonations at all. I think that's just a woman thing. I don't think any men are interested in Kamala impersonations. But so she plays it, and it's a torso of a dude with a penis and the penis it's crazy because it's perfectly straight penis, and it's perfectly parallel to the ground. And then her head is just like blowing it. I think it even shows the shaft. It's crazy. I told my wife, I'm like, that's porn. She goes, I know. I was like, all right. That's in your show, the Game of Thrones show? She said, yeah. What's it? House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon. How did they House of the Dragon? I wonder if I can pull that graphic scene in episode 3 cut. House of Dragons fans were absolutely gobsmacked when a scene involved a man with a giant wang copying a blowjob from a sex worker. I wouldn't say it was giant. Oh yeah, you want to see it? Here it is. Look it. Here it is. It's this blurred out thing right here. I deliberately said gobsmacked. Literary expression is just so powerful. I wouldn't say it was powerful. I don't think it was necessary. I blurred it because I'm a considerate lady, but you get the gist. So you can see the picture above. Girl pop is absolutely giving that monster cock. It's not. Who wrote this? Why does it have to be a monster? It's just a regular cock. Yeah, it's a little wow, listen to this. The scene is also a bit of an odd choice considering Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon have come under fire a few times for misogynistic way of female characters are depicted. Dude, every time I'm on see the screen, it's like shows all these women in power. I think it's the opposite. It's misandry. Who wrote this? Oh, Laura. Let me see what Laura looks like. Oh, Laura's got her titties out. Laura Messiah is an entertainment reporter with the Pedestrian TV. She's working as a journalist for 7 years across Australia. Let's see. I want to go to her Instagram account. You know why I'm going to go to her Instagram account? Because I think her boyfriend must have a tiny dick. I want to see if I can see her boyfriend and assess from the just a little investigative work here. Is this her? Virtual. Oh my God, look at this. A virtual model came up. God, the internet is crazy. I'm not even going to show you guys this. I hate virtual models. I want that shit to go away. Laura Massey. Let me see. No posts. Instagram. Oh, here it is. Pedestrian TV's senior. Oh, she's Pedestrian TV's silliest little senior reporter. Maybe she's. Oh wow, she dresses to impress. Oh, is this her boyfriend? For the record, I don't know if that's her boyfriend. Oh, is this her boyfriend? Mr. and Mrs. Strelick. Oh no, that's her friend. Anyway, Pedestrian TV. Wow, look at that helicopter. How did that thing get there? Oh, this chick parties. All right. Anyway, she thought the cock was giant. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That was not as disturbing as I don't know. The centipede seat in The Boys was pretty crazy. How about in The Boys when the guy with the 15-inch dick comes on someone? 15-inch, sorry. 150-foot dick. 150 foot. That was fucking I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. I was just like, what? Is that really what? Why does giving a blowjob mean the show is misogynistic? Oh, I don't think that was the implication. Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying the show was they already claimed the show is misogynistic, so a blowjob on top of that makes it more misogynistic. Yeah, that's crazy. You're right. You're right. That is crazy. Wow, good assessment, Miss Riddell. Man, I'm slipping. That's a great assessment. Yeah, that's misandry. That's the hatred of men. She has her words confused. Maybe it's a typo. Andrew Hiller's doing something this weekend with Brian Friend. It's they're doing the no rep tournament. It's going to be interesting. No reps. Of course. Oh, I hear clicking. Of course, I'm going to watch it. Of course, I have to watch it. I have to make sure Andrew. I hope he gets in a fight with Brian live on the air. I hope they have a disagreement. Migrant allegedly robs prosecutor from Alvin Bragg's office. Do you guys know who Alvin Braggs is? Alvin Braggs. Alvin Braggs. This is such a great story. Alvin Braggs is the Manhattan District Attorney. Alvin Braggs. Let's type in Trump. Trump lawyers demand Bragg's case be immediately dismissed. Bragg's case effectively over. Braggs announces 34-count felony trial conviction. This is the district attorney for Manhattan that went after Donald Trump so hard. This is a Soros appointee. He's pro-crime, pro-illegal immigration. And what's crazy is he's a black dude, but the black people in New York fucking hate him. This guy has let New York turn into just a steaming pile of shit. An illegal Venezuelan migrant, homeless and facing multiple charges, allegedly robbed a woman and exposed himself to her, leading to his arrest on Tuesday. Brandon Somoza, 25, is linked to the notorious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, faces charges including sexually motivated robbery and burglary, grand larceny, 4 counts of criminal possession of stolen property. He's also charged with 2 counts of petty larceny, along with criminal possession of stolen property, criminal possession of controlled substance. Tren de Aragua is a violent criminal organization originating in Venezuela. The gang operates in 16 states. Brandon Somoza is an illegal Venezuelan homeless migrant linked to the notorious gang. Robbed a woman and exposed himself to her, leading to his arrest. This is one of the people who works in Alvin Braggs's office. On Sunday at 2 a.m., 38-year-old woman who is unnamed walked inside a residential building near 44th Street. Somoza followed her inside and demanded cash, according to a release from the New York City Police Department. He then grabbed the victim's purse, took her cell phone, bank cards, performed a lewd act in front of her, and ran off on foot. They caught the dude. There's an Instagram video of him. It's so crazy. Do you remember in the same week? By the way, all these guys are cute, which is weird. There's so many of these bad guys. Look how cute this guy is. He could have gone the straight and narrow.
Brandon Somoza being led out of the Midtown South precinct on West 35th Street this morning. Police say at about 2 a.m. Sunday, he robbed a 38-year-old woman in the hallway of her Hell's Kitchen apartment building. He allegedly grabbed her purse, cell phone, and bank cards, and also performed a lewd act.
Why don't they tell you what the lewd act is? That guy's been arrested 5 times since 2023. Five arrests since 2023. Why don't they tell you he grabbed his cock and gave it 3 fucking yanks from the shaft down to the helmet? Like what? Why? Like now I have to look up illegal lewd act. What falls under that category? Performed involving touching your privates for sexual gratification or to offend others. So your intent could be either. Yeah, CK Kevin, exactly. He's a nice church-going boy, according to his mother. I know that was a trip. Good catch, Christian. I saw that too. Sexually motivated robbery. Like what? Sexually motivated robbery. Is that you rob someone so you can spend the money to pay for a prostitute? I don't know why I think this is so funny, but for some reason, anytime that there's hot chicks and Arabic or like being spoken, the dichotomy is so weird to me. This is such a weird video.
Hey, boss.
Salam, salam, salam.
Good morning.
Salam alaikum, salam. Salam.
Hey, boss. I'll have that report to you by the end of the day, by the way. Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Bitch. Hey, boss.
Salam, salam, salam.
Salam, salam, salam.
Good morning.
Salam alaikum,
Salam alaikum.
salam.
Salam.
Hey, boss. I'll have that report to you by the end of the day, by the way. Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Bitch.
Salam alaikum. I just think of those guys as like never being around good beaver. Crazy, like I just picture them just being around. Where do they keep all those women? I just picture them around being those women who dress like ninjas. Salam alaikum. Salam, salam. Salam. Allah Akbar. Salam. Salam. Salam, salam. That's what HQ used to be like between 2010 and 2018. Except it was all hot dudes. You're right. It was like that, but it was all hot dudes. Let me tell you who worked at hot dudes and lesbians. That's what worked at HQ. Top of the food chain bitches and fucking hot dudes. A lot of Mexicans. A lot of fucking Mexicans. 40% Mexican. Chicanos. Latinos. One Armenian. I wonder if there are any other Armenians who work there. I was the only Armenian dude. Even the chicks who weren't lesbians, I suspected they were lesbians. A lot of fucking single women in the office. Like I don't know. Maybe I just told myself that so that I wouldn't look at them at all. But I just assumed I'm trying to think. I did actually assume that. Now that I think about it, I never had thought of that about that. I pretty much assumed that every chick who works at HQ was a lesbian, even if they were married. Yeah, I'd throw Nicole Carroll in the lesbian pile. Why not? Could see that. Tons of hot dudes. Create so many fucking hot dudes. I would say we had a disproportionately gay population. I don't know why so many lesbians want to be fit. I think gay dudes, I don't know, there's some narcissist component. I was by far the least fit and least gay dude in the office. I would say. I'm trying to think. Yeah. I was definitely the least fit and least gay dude. I was the most heterosexual dude in that office, maybe of all the employees. Maybe I was probably fitter than Greg. Maybe a little less straight than him too. Greg's pretty fucking on the. I was probably more open to gayness than the guys who are more gay than me. Boy, get your head wrapped around that. Who is the most fit? Ooh, that's a good question. There was this dude, Lucas Zepeda, there who was fucking fit. And another dude, Carrie Hare, was fit. Matt Bishel, there were so many fucking dudes who were fit. It was crazy. Tommy was always fit. Heber and Marsh. Heber did not come there fit. He came there a pinner and got crazy fucking jacked and fit. There's a dude who still works there. I don't know how he survived for this long. I guess it's just hard work. He was crazy fit. There were actually a couple dudes who I would say who were less fit than me. There were some dudes there who were significantly stronger than me who were probably less fit than me. Yeah, I wonder who was. I'll ask. Let me ask someone. Let me see. Kara Hipskin, this girl who worked there, was fit as shit. Who was the fittest person at HQ? Lucas? And Lucas is kind of like Dave and Boz's right-hand man, like with the programming and testing the workouts and all that shit. Or maybe there was a guy there, Carrie Hare. I think Carrie ended up going with the new company. I think Rosa gave him a job, and then I think he ended up working at what's those bags that you wear on your chest and shit, and they're heavy, and they sponsored their games. I want to call it Zuckfit. Go Ruck. I think he worked at Go Ruck then after that, because I saw him at the games working for Go Ruck. Isn't it? I worked with that guy for like 12 years. I think I saw him at least once a week, and I think we've exchanged less than 100 words. One time I told him he was the least funniest guy I've ever met in my life. I don't think he liked that. I think that actually offended him. Nicole would, when I say Nicole could throw in the pile, she'd be bi. I mean, when I say lesbian, I'm throwing in bi too. Bi. Let's just say bi. Bisexual. And maybe both. In the Scotts Valley office, I'm trying to think who else was really fitting there. Or the company, company wide. All you people who've texted me about Patrick Clark and all your Patrick Clark stories, like, I don't want to hate Patrick Clark. But, okay. Oh, Okay, so listen to this. Tommy Marquez, Carrie Hare, Rob Miller, Leah Pulaski, Kara Hipskin, Lucas Zepeda. Oh, and if you include seminar, those in The Office, those were the fittest ones. So Tommy, Carrie, Rob Miller. I forgot about Rob Miller. Oh yeah, and the fittest at all time that worked at CrossFit Inc. The suggestions are Froning, Spencer Hendel, and Camille. Wow, that's very thorough. Wow, great intel. Thank you. That's impressive. Yeah, I guess you'd have to say Froning was by far the. Yeah, I told this guy was so serious, this Carey dude, and I told him one time, dude, you were the least funny person I've ever met in my life, or something, and it didn't land well. Yeah, and when I said it, I knew it was harsh. Someone just sent me a text message reminding me of the service that Dave provided for this country too. 12 years in the Navy. Almost lost his life many times.
Because Donald Trump said, I've heard it's less than 1%. He was right.
He was totally correct.
Quite a bit less than 1%.
And a lot of conversations with a lot of people that do this. I think the number is way under 1%.
So to fact check, the World Health Organization says the coronavirus death rate is 3.4%.
Imagine if that was true. Just get your head wrapped around that for a second. Imagine if 3.4% of the people in the world would have died from coronavirus. That would be 300 million people. Like, the entire planet would smell like rotting flesh if 300 million people fucking died from coronavirus. Just imagine believing that. Imagine living in the United States and going outside your house, even if someone who lives in a bubble like me, and being like, oh shit, 3% of the people around me are going to die. Imagine the fucking panic. Imagine that. 10 million people all of a sudden have to be buried. That's what I mean. People just get that's going along the same lines with like this investigation. It's like, contextualize things, put things relative. When you say all they care about is the money, if all they cared about was the money, would they want Lazar dead? Uplift, while doing the math for me, correcting me, letting me know that my numbers are off by 22 million. 278 million people across the world. Now let's just listen. I'm rounding up to 300. Fuck not. I wore your shirt the other day too. I think it sucks how good your shirt fits me, because I only want to wear CEO shit, but your shirt fits me so good, and I'm such a whore to hiding my love rolls. Imagine thinking that 3.4% of the world was going to die. Now, if it was, it'd be fucking crazy. I'm not saying that a disease couldn't hit the planet and do that, but imagine not being able to just like look around and be like, okay, that's bullshit. Who's that? Who is that?
President Trump lies that the World Health Organization is wrong.
The number is 3.4%. 3.4% is what it's being reported around.
My boy Sanjay.
That was a fucking doctor, Sanjay Gupta, America's doctor, saying 3.4%. Like, that's why anytime someone says expert to you, you should be like, yo, but can he do third grade math? Can he go outside and be like, hey, a fucking 3.4%? Like, listen, anytime someone says that, you just need to be like, okay, I know 100 people are 3 people dead. That's it. That's all you have to do. I lived in California. I didn't know one person who died of AIDS.
The death rate. The percentage is 3.4%. And no hunch from the president can change that.
Trump lied about the most recent World Health Organization estimate that the global death rate of coronavirus is 3.4%.
Jesus.
The 3.4% death rate was wrong, and WHO data later updated it to
a fraction of 1%.
Let's go back into history.
Trump has a hunch that the death rate is lower than 1%.
Way under 1%. Way under 1%.
Will someone put a mozzarella stick in his stupid hole?
Trump lied to viewers about the mortality rate.
Way under 1%.
False information.
He's spreading disinformation.
Misinformation and dangerous disinformation.
If you're president of the United States, you have the world's greatest scientists at your disposal. You listen to them.
Leading scientists, including Dr. Fauci, wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine that the death rate could be considerably less than 1%.
Way under 1%.
Why are you
See, this is we've seen enough. These people are fucking puppets, man.
Yes.
They're puppets, and they willfully, gleefully repeat these narratives.
Hey, I appreciate you, all of you who were like in the comments, like fighting back too. And I apologize that I put us on slippery footing by giving Wooly such an easy pie in the face, but it is what it is, just so you know. But I do appreciate you guys. I do find it entertaining, genital stimulating to see you guys out there just banging heads and fucking and basically just fucking with the NPCs. Oh, wow. I just DM'd you a crazy video about C-section. And hospitals selling placentas for big money. Jeez. Dude, the barbell spin has just fucking taken over. Does everyone know that? Like the morning chalk up is like dead. Soon as Spin releases a newsletter, God, I need to find someone to do my newsletter. I hope Rios' wife can do it. Soon as Spin releases a daily newsletter, it's fucking lights out. Yeah, it looks like 1.2 million died in the U.S. of COVID. The population 334 million, which brings us to 0.36. And the that 1.1 million, right, Mark? It's like, hey, but the flu vanished. So how many of those people? I mean, I don't even believe that, but I hear you. I'm not. That's not a dig at you. It's just like I don't believe those numbers. But I'll roll with it. Yeah, 0.36%. And then basically it goes the inverse. If you were under 15 and you caught COVID, you'll probably live longer. Shit that no one talks about, right? If you're under 15 and you caught COVID, you'll probably live longer because you built an immunity that will help fight off more shit in the future. Like they won't even factor in shit like that. Oh, someone sent me someone sent me a Brian Friend clip. I thought it froze. No, I just forgot you guys were there. I almost picked my nose. I'm getting distracted now. All right. Oh, did my kid's skate lessons get canceled? Is it raining? Good morning. It's dry here and sky looks overcast. Says 40% chance rain, so maybe don't risk it. I'm happy to try if you like. Okay, maybe better not risk it. Okay. I'm taking so yesterday I took my kids to like a big 5 they'd never been before. And today I'm going to take them to, what's the sports store in Watsonville? Sports store, Watsonville. Oh, it's another big 5. Today I'm taking them to like a legit big 5. Oh, they're going to shit. Can you believe how easy it is to raise them? You want to hear just a crazy story? So yesterday, I went into Baskin Robbins to order an ice cream cake. They opened at 11. And there's this lady, she's probably 65 years old, Indian lady, strong Indian accent, and she works there. And so she's pulling down the chairs, setting the place up, and we walk in, and I walk in with my 3 boys. And she says, "Can I help you guys?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, they want to order a birthday cake." So my oldest, Avi, takes charge. And he's like, "Hi, how are you? I'd like to order a cake." And she's like, and then she starts asking him all the questions. How many people is it for? What flavor do you want? And he's like, every time she asks a question, he gets with his 2 brothers and like they decide, right? Like they powwow. How many people is it for? They count how many people, and they tell him. And I'm already like in my DMs fucking with you guys, but I can kind of hear what's going on, right? And I'm hearing all the pleases and thank yous, and they get into some small talk. Are you guys brothers? Why aren't you in school? Just all that shit. And then afterwards, they're finishing up. The whole thing like takes like 10 minutes, right? And we're the only person in there. It's 11 a.m. at a Baskin Robbins. Like they just opened the fucking door. And I stand up as it's wrapping up, and she goes, "Do you mind if I give your kids a free ice cream?" And I look at them. I'm like, "No, that's fine." But really inside, I'm fuming. But it's like, it's the twins' birthday, whatever. And we're buying fucking ice cream cake. And then she proceeds to fucking go off on me for 10 minutes that she's never in her fucking life met kids like this. She's like, "Hey, I've raised kids. I've been, I work in the ice cream shop. I've never, in the fucking 10 years I've owned this shop, I've never seen kids like yours, ever." It was crazy. And she went off for 10 minutes and just rattled off all the characteristics about my kids. It was nuts. I mean, usually everywhere I go, I get some sort of weird response, like some sort of like, "Holy shit, are these real kids?" But this was over the top. And then I had to hear about it the whole ride home. Avi's like, "Yeah, we're real hit." I'm like, shut the fuck up. 5 minutes would have been enough. Cool story, bro. Thanks, David. You'll never know since you shoot blanks, cuck boy. Uplift Wad, that's really cool, dude. Congrats. Yeah, it makes me so proud. I'm so stoked. Sevi, did Sevi get off his 72-hour hold? Hold of what? On a side note, I did 4 rounds of 20 cows on the rower. Okay. 50 air squats. Tore me up yesterday. Oh, maybe I'll do that. I took yesterday I ran 1 minute on, 1 minute off, taking turns with one of my sons, with Joseph, on the assault runner. We did 10 1-minute sprints. Shit was hard. All right. I'm off to Big 5. Big museum trip for the kids. They'll probably want like some cheesy like $4 pocket knife, right? And like one of those like barefoot, of course, barefoot. Yeah, she was tripping on barefoot too. She was tripping on all that. I told her at one point, I'm like, "Hey," she's like, "How are they like this?" I'm like, "Well, 1, we don't normally eat this kind of shit. But 2, they're homeschooled and they're not around other kids." And I go, and then at one point something came up. I go, "Yeah, these kids have never had a fucking vaccine or anything." And she goes, "They didn't even get the COVID vaccine?" I'm like, "No, ma'am, not even the COVID one." Ken Walters, I managed early in my career the Galen's 150,000 square foot sporting goods store in Minnesota for 10 years. Great job. Then Dick's bought us. Yeah. What's even the best sporting goods store in my neighborhood looks like it's from the 70s. Like we're going to go to this, like the Big Five we went to yesterday looks like it's, you're in a third world country. This one will be like still like bad. Maybe I'll go Instagram live in there and show you. It's so fucking tired. Everything's so tired. Guys, is it worth to go back and watch the drama? Oh, you mean from last night? No, I don't think so. I got in a little bit of trouble. My wife didn't like me going after Meredith Root. She said, "Hey, you know, she's like not stable," and then you went out, and then you fucking slapped her around a little bit. I got in a little trouble for that, and then isn't it crazy? My wife likes Meredith Root. She follows Meredith Root. I'm like, babe, this chick's trying to cornhole me. Like she had me totally mischaracterized. But my wife's like, still be nice to her. It's fine. Anyway, so I got in a little bit of trouble for that. And then, but she did say the show was funny. I do think the show was funny. Yeah, I saw some expensive bats there yesterday. My kids don't like to swing aluminum bats. I need to figure that out. Or wooden bats. For some reason, whenever we play baseball, they only want to swing a plastic bat. It really fucking pisses me off. I know. I can't stand her. She insults everyone. I know. But my wife's like, hey, you know she's not stable, and you don't insult people just because they insult you. I'm like, I know. But it was a show where I was just like fucking shit up. And she's like, it doesn't matter. I just got a little talking to. You know? So I don't mind her the attacking people. It's just that she does seem a little, you know, I'm trying to think, like John Woolley doesn't seem fragile to me. Like he's game. You know what I mean? Like he's got thick skin. Meredith, it's almost like maybe it's just the libtard in me, but I feel like I don't want to pick on someone who's not like equipped. That being said, remember when her and her girlfriend, I can't remember her name. I like her too. What's her name? She looks like Tom Cruise. What the fuck is that girl's name? Alex Parker. Remember when they came after Chase? That was fucked up. That's the thing. Like some of the things that Woolley, it's like almost like when you go after someone's job or tattletale on them, it's like me and you are in the schoolyard and we're throwing rocks at each other and we both know that someone could get hurt, and then I hit you with a rock and you run and tell the teacher. It's like, you fucking idiot. We've been doing this for fucking 20 minutes and because you lost, you go tell the teacher. Like that shit is lame. I know. Yeah. Are you arguing her limitations? I know. Yeah, you're right. Caught. I know. For her. Yeah. I know. You're right. You're right. I am Mr. Doyle. I am guilty. Who is saying she's not mentally stable? Is it certified by a doctor or the public? Both. I don't want to get into it because I'm going to get in trouble with my wife again. But like, I think it's pretty clear that she's not. That the elevator doesn't go all the way up, or that something happened to her. She's damaged goods or something. Something happened. Like she's got weird pathologies. Same with like Michelle Hooper. Like something's happened to them that's thrown them off, or they just haven't had enough life experiences. They're not thinking right. Something's interfering with the thinking. Yeah, Gates with True. They got some hot blonde chick now. Like that comment right there. They got some hot blonde chick there. There's some people who'll be like, that's misogynistic or that's demeaning, or like they have like. I get how they jump to that conclusion, but they don't get how they jump to that conclusion. They don't get it's them bringing the fact that I call her some hot chick is misogynistic. Like I get how they want to have the propensity to say that or that it was demeaning. But really, if you look at it, it's like, hey, you brought that to it. You have some issue with hot chicks being in power or men recognizing that women are hot. It's like, no, that's you. That's on you. It's like that. You know what I mean? Alex chick going hard after the Tom Cruise look. Yeah. I mean, she nails it. She looks good. So. All right. I'm going to go to second Big Five in 2 days. I haven't been to a Big Five in fucking 10 years now. I've done 2 in 2 days. It's so great to see my kids' eyes light up. They love that shit. Hiller's video on High Rocks is pretty funny. What is this? Start show with this? No. Shredding evidence? No. Election fraud? Dude, weightlifting. What is this? Thanks, Mark. All right, guys. I will see you guys. Oh, I'm gonna see you guys today. 12. We got another show today. Big show. Big show. You're not gonna want if you're into game shit, you're not gonna want to miss this afternoon show. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.